Because I'm such a gearhead, I figured I would share with you all of the photo and video equipment that I brought along on this trip. Now, this is just what I brought, not necessarily what I recommend, and I'm already thinking about replacing a lot of these things with different pieces of gear, which I'll talk about throughout the video. I think moving forward, I want to be a little bit lighter, and I want to bring less stuff, especially because weight was an issue a couple times. I'm kind of rethinking a lot of this just so that next time it goes a little smoother and I capture the things that I want to capture. So Mads and I just got back to the States about a month ago, where we had to unpack, repack, and then move here to New Jersey, where we're kind of now just settling into our space here. Mads took a nursing contract here in New Jersey, and I'll be substitute teaching, as well as starting my master's degree and kind of starting this whole photography thing. Now, before all of that, in the months of August and September, we spent both of those months in the South Eastern Hemisphere. It was filled with beautiful moments and stressful moments, but man, it is always pretty cool to kind of go see new places, new wildlife, new landscapes, just to see new things. It's always cool to see how other people live and to kind of live a little bit like them for a little bit. So anyway, it's always awesome to travel. I do wish we had more time in New Zealand though, so maybe we move there someday. So we will start with my bread and butter camera. That is the Sony a7 IV. I'm actually using it right now to record this video on. And then there's the a7 IV. Now this was my main photo camera. I did a couple videos, but I mainly just did photos on that. I brought three Sony, FP, NZ 1100, whatever the Sony battery is. I brought three of those with a USB charger. And for the a7 IV, I actually brought three lenses. The Sigma 100 to 400 f5.6 to 6.4. This is a great wildlife lens just all around. It's pretty cheap. The telephoto was mainly for wildlife. I also took some landscapes on this lens. But honestly, I'm kind of dreaming of a 300 f2.8, that Sony G Master. There were a few times, one with a wallaby in Australia and then another one with some sheep in New Zealand, that I wish I had that wider aperture. I had to bump the ISO pretty high because of that f5 or even f6.4 when I'm out at 400. So I could have really used that extra wider aperture, that f2.8 and the 300. I'm kind of like dreaming of having that someday. We'll see if that day ever comes, but it'd be nice to kind of have some teleconverters with that, either the 1.4 or the 2 times teleconverter. I kind of stay in that 400 millimeter focal range, so the 1.4 times might be perfect for me. Anyway, another lens that I brought with was the 20G lens, f1.8. Now I've had this for quite a long time now. You can kind of see there's some wear on the lens itself, but this was incredibly good for astro, and I think I used it for a couple videos, but I don't think I used it for much else. But yeah, for a lot of the astro time lapses that I had, were taken on this. That's what the main thing I used this for on this trip. I used the 20 for a little bit of photography. I felt like the 20 was just so wide, and I just felt like extremely wide. I might be replacing this with the 24 f1.4 G Master. I think 24 would probably be better for everyday photos, just as good as the 20 for astrophotography, and heck, would be maybe even be better because it has a f1.4 instead of a f1.8. 24 probably be a better fit to what I kind of need. The third lens that I brought with me is the infamous Helios 55 f2. It's infamous for being very cheap. It has this beautiful swirly bokeh, and I have this adapter that allows it to go on the Sony a7 IV. Honestly, not for me. I kind of regret bringing this lens on this trip. I've kind of learned that I really love having the sun behind my subjects. This just does not handle that very well. Honestly, horrible for that. I'll give you a couple examples. I will say I did a really good job making my camera look less expensive, which is kind of nice in countries where, it feels like you might have your camera swiped at any moment. Another thing about the Helios too, it felt like I was kind of right at home in Hanoi because it literally says made in the USSR, and they had Soviet flags everywhere. That hammering and sickle was like right next to the Vietnamese star flag, like all over the place in Hanoi. I mean, it makes sense because it is northern Vietnam. They're a little more friendly to the U.S. in the south, but yeah, they had plenty of the USSR flags, which was kind of ironic because we didn't really plan on going to Vietnam during this trip, and I brought a lens that fit right in there. So I'm probably going to replace, and already have replaced it with, the 50 f 2.5 G lens. It's tiny, compact. I got a little square hood to it. I've already kind of used it around New York City. I really like this for street stuff, and 50 millimeters is kind of my favorite focal length. This is probably what will be going with me on future traveling trips. So now overall with the Sony a7 IV, I might change this to the a7C. It's less expensive and much smaller, so I feel a little bit better traveling with it. I'll probably keep the a7 IV forever, honestly, especially for professional work. I think the a7C might be better for travel. I might also get an original A9. It's about as big as the a7 IV, so I don't know. It might be nice to have a second body, a second Sony body. The next piece of gear is what I used mainly for videos. The GoPro Hero 10, I believe. Like I do have on this mic, I have a little wind guard, and I carry this thing everywhere. I carried it in this fanny pack that I had on me at all times. It had my passport and stuff like that in it. So I carried this with me all the time, and it always had my GoPro in it. I brought 4 batteries with this GoPro, but I probably could have gotten rid of one of them. I didn't need all 4. I probably could have lived with just 3. And I have one that is made for the cold weather, so that was kind of nice to have in a couple of our hikes, especially in New Zealand. Got a little crazy. I needed that cold weather battery. I also brought a tripod and a dive housing with. I wasn't sure if we were going to go scuba diving or not, but we ended up snorkeling, and I used that dive housing with. It fits the dead cat inside the dive housing, which was very nice because I didn't have to take off this little fuzzy thing every time I wanted to use it in the water. So whenever I was in the water, I'd put it in the dive housing, and that worked really well. I will say this is kind of a must-have for me for all of my trips. It has such great stabilization for video, for kind of on the move video and stuff like that. It is very good at what it does, but it's not a great photo camera. Great for time lapses, great for underwater stuff, for snorkeling stuff, because I do that a lot too. So anyway, this will stay for sure. The other thing that I had in this fanny pack all of the time is this little film camera, which is the Pentax 120 SW. That has this insane zoom. It's a 28 to 120 millimeter lens. I love this little guy. I really, really like having the dates being burned into each of the photos. It's just fun to have that little effect. Now, a lot of people are using filters for that effect. Now, mine is actually burnt into the film itself. So the film that I actually get back from the lab has those dates burnt into it, which I think is a really cool effect to have, and a cool feature to have for future me when I'm looking back on these albums and looking back on the trips that I went on. So I love this little guy, but it does need a ton of light at that wide 28 millimeter range. It has an aperture of 5.6. I don't know, I kind of wish it had a wider aperture, but for what this is, again, just capturing little film photos of everything and it's really compact with the date. It's really cool. It's really great in direct sunlight. Now, I might need to use a higher ISO film. I used Fuji 200 in this, but might go to a 400 or even 800 ISO because that aperture is so small. But anyway, love this little guy, and it'll probably stick with me for future trips. Staying in the film world, I brought with me the Olympus, as I almost drop it, I brought with me the Olympus OM1. It has a 50 millimeter f1.4, which I love. I love this lens. The action of the film advance is so satisfying. The shutter just sounds gorgeous. Now I used HP5 in this. I love that for this because it has that low aperture. That black and white kind of really is great for portraits and that kind of stuff. This light meter that I have on top, I had one before this trip. I had a light meter for this camera that was the same, and it broke. The button on the back no longer worked. So I bought another one thinking that that would, be taken on this trip with me because the light meter's broken on this. It'd be much easier to get light meter readings for the manual settings on this camera. So I thought I brought this new one when we got to Bali, and I brought out all of my camera stuff and started putting all of this together and wanted to take a photo with this. I couldn't use the light meter because it was broken. I thought I brought the old broken one. When we got back to the United States, I found out that I actually did bring the new light meter, but the same thing broke. It was something within the button internally. I have fixed them since, so now I have 2 working light meters. I just put a couple pieces of tape in it to put pressure on one of the metal pieces so that it hits the button at the right spot on the motherboard. It works. I'm glad I have it fixed now because I'm definitely going to bring this camera into New York City. I will say I kind of regret bringing this lens. It's just too heavy. It's a really heavy metal camera, which is great, but I don't think it's great for travel. Honestly, I think I could have done everything on the Sony that this thing did. It just was unnecessary to have this. And I brought 3 rolls of HP5. I only used 2 of the 3 rolls of HP5 that I brought. So probably too heavy, don't really want it. If I bring it with traveling again, I will probably just bring this camera and it'll be just a film photography trip. I carried all of this film in a little metal film canister, and I see so many people talking about how the scanners in airports mess with film and destroy film. Now, I didn't see any problem with any of the film that I got back from the lab. I mean, I went through a ton of scanners. So we flew to Bali, to Singapore, to Vietnam, to Australia, to New Zealand, and back. So that's 6 different flights. And I didn't see any difference. I don't think the scanning X-rays in airports really do anything to the film. So I brought my DJI Mavic Mini. It's the original one. I brought 3 batteries, a controller, and some extra wings just in case I ran into something. I used it once and I regret not using it more. I only used it at the alpaca farm in New Zealand. It does not handle wind well, so I'm kind of afraid to use it, but I've had it long enough that if I lose it, it's not a huge deal. So I just need to decide that it's worth it to use it in bad weather because I love drone stuff. It's just such a different perspective, and it really is great for showing the different places that I go. So I wish I'd have used it more. The last camera that I'm going to talk about is not really mine, but it's my girlfriend Mads's. She has the Fujifilm X-E3 with the 23mm f2. Mads didn't use this a ton, but she really likes the 23mm focal length because it's an APS-C sensor, so technically it's the 35mm focal length full frame equivalent. And she actually has a really, really good eye for photography, and it's really cool to have another person taking photos too, but she doesn't bring anything other than this. That's her Fujifilm X-E3. Some extra accessories that I brought a Sony mic. It's a stereo mic, and pair of Boya wireless lav mics. I didn't even use these at all. The 2 months were mainly photography. I didn't do much audio recording, so this was just like extra weight. Basically, it just came along with, flew around to all of these different countries, and I didn't even use them. So I regret having those, and I think moving forward, I'll probably not have those at all. I might bring the Sony stereo to get the ambiance of different areas. It might be nice to have that. So the tripod that I brought was an aluminum Peak Designs tripod. It's that ultra slim, compact tripod. I have a different ball head on the top. I think it's from a 3-legged thing. I took the head off because I liked that more than the Peak Designs ball head. Now I did use the ultralight feet because it saves a ton of weight. So that was nice. I'll probably end up doing that moving forward. I don't know. We'll see. Because I did come into an instance where, because with the ultralight feet, the legs don't go very wide, I set my camera on the tripod on a rock, and the rock was kind of an uneven surface, and my camera ended up falling over. And now I have a nice little ding on the exposure compensation dial. So my A7 IV took a little bit of a bang there in Australia. So I don't know. I might bring the extra feet. Might be nice to have that for just the wider, more stability of it. So anyway, now a couple other extras. I brought a SD card holder. And an SD card reader, a SanDisk SD card reader, because I shoot JPEGs and RAW. So I shot JPEGs to one card and RAW to another card. And it was really nice to be able to take the JPEG card and just plug it into my camera and be able to edit from that really quickly and take those photos off, edit them, and post them to social media or whatever. It's nice to have those photos really quickly. So that was really good to have. I also used a Peak Designs camera cube. I think I had the small one. Yeah, this one. And this thing was really nice to have, just a protective barrier because it has really good padding in it. And I just put this in with all of my other stuff. I think all of my camera stuff fit in this besides the wildlife, like the Sigma 100 to 400, that long lens, and my tripod. Those are the only two things that couldn't fit in that. So I fit everything else in that. And that was really nice to have. Now, I also brought a couple Clever Supply Co.'s leather straps. I really, really, really love these straps. One of them was actually on Mads's camera. She kind of has, I've basically given this to her, and this stays on the Fujifilm almost all the time, this little wrist strap. But the one that I use all the time, because I love having the camera slung across my torso, I used this. I don't remember the length. I don't remember the length of this, but I've had it for a very long time. It's nice and worn. I love that worn leather feel of this, and I use this all the time. So this Clever Supply Co. leather strap is awesome. I've even gotten a couple more. I bought an adjustable strap that is kind of like this, but you can adjust the length, and then another wrist strap because Mads has basically taken mine. So the last piece of equipment I'll talk about for this video is this Peak Designs capture clip. It just helped me attach my camera to my backpack. I've been using this for years, and I probably will continue using it. So that was all of the gear that I brought with on our long trip to the other side of the world. And in hindsight, I really, really, really should have brought one of those blowers. I got some dust on my sensor and had to try my best to get it off on the A7 IV. So I really wish I had that blower, and then a couple sensor cleaner swabs with the sensor cleaner drops on it. Those would have been really nice to have with too for those kinds of things. I think from now on I will forever bring a blower and a couple sensor cleaners. It also would have been nice to have some moisture absorbers, like those little silica packets that you can find in food packages, especially in New Zealand when it was really cold at night and it was really humid because we got rained on a lot. I got some moisture inside the 100 to 400, and it was really hard to get it out. I ended up having to blow into the zoom ring to be able to get all of that humidity out, to try and get some airflow in it so that it wouldn't be just fogged up all the time. So that was kind of a problem, and I think some moisture absorbers would have really helped with that problem. I also brought so much equipment. This is too much. This is too much stuff, and it actually became a problem on some airlines, especially Vietjet. For a lot of those airlines, your carry-on has to be less than 7 kilograms, which became kind of a problem. So I had to put my wildlife lens into our checked bag. Ideally, moving forward, I get almost all of my camera gear under 7 kilograms because I don't really want to check any of my camera gear. I'd like to have that on me at all times. I don't want to get camera gear stuck in the mess that is checked baggage. I'd like to get my base equipment less than 7 kilograms. That's kind of the goal, hopefully, moving forward. The story of what I captured with all of this equipment is what I will be telling over the next few months. I will tell this story with a video for each country: Bali for 26 days, Singapore for 7 days, Vietnam for 6 days, Australia for 6 days, and New Zealand for 12 days, which again, I wish was years, because New Zealand is one of my favorite countries that I've ever been to. And the alpaca farm was a dream. I would love to start something like that with Matt someday. And we've kind of been scheming for that kind of life since we've had that experience. So that might be a thing in our future. Anyway, each country will get their own video, and I will probably end up stitching them all together at the end of it, kind of like I did with the Galapagos trip. that I did last summer. I'm also probably going to make a bunch of shorts for Instagram, TikToks, YouTube shorts, I guess reels for Instagram, YouTube shorts, TikToks, that kind of stuff. I'll make some short form stuff where I just take little blurbs out of each country, and those will be posted over the next few weeks. So follow me on my other socials to kind of keep updated on all of that. Also, you can check out my prints website if you want to support my photography career and get something out of it, some decorations. I have some of my wildlife on there. I'll probably end up adding a lot of the stuff from this trip because I've gotten some great wildlife photos and some landscape stuff. I'll add to that print website as well. So check those out if you want to support me. And other ways that you can support me too is by liking, subscribing, sharing this video to others. That is another way to support my photography career here moving forward. Yes, like, comment, subscribe, that whole thing. And I'm really leaning into the whole YouTuber thing here. But engagement really does help me get more views, helps get my platform out there, and helps me hopefully financially support all of this equipment that I love to get. Hopefully helps me get a 300 f2.8 someday. That would be the dream. So hopefully you can help me make my dreams come true here. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Whoa! I always grunt when I get up. I'm getting too old for this. Or I just need to do some yoga. Hey, Prance. Hey, buddy. Hey, Prancer. I know. Hi. Is he in it? Yeah, he is. Hello, Prancer. Yeah, I know, Prancer. Yeah, you're kind of interrupting a lot of things. It's okay, though. I'll take you outside in just a little bit, in like 10 minutes, okay?